Good morning, I'm Dan. I'm Randwick City Council's Bushland officer, and today we're here at the Western Escarpment walking track at Malabar Headland National Park. It's a beautiful sunny day and we're going to go for a little walk and show you some of the native wildflowers that are out. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the Bidjigal and Gadigal people as the traditional custodians of this land and pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging. Malabar Headland's a pretty special place, so come join us for a walk and see what we can find. So here you can see these beautiful white little 5-petaled flowers. This is the coastal tea tree, and this is one of the most common shrub species we get in the area. It gets to sort of 4 to 5 metres tall, and yeah, it gets these beautiful little white flowers, which on a day like today, you get a lot of little native bees flying all around them. This one here is Petunia lanceolata. It's got quite a few different common names. One is G-bung. Another one which you sometimes hear, which is a bit different, is snotty gobbles. And that's because of these fleshy fruits it gets on them, which are edible. They have quite a soft mucousy consistency, and that's where it gets the common name from. Unfortunately, this one doesn't have any flowers at the moment, but when they do flower, they get small, bright yellow flowers that almost look a bit like a banana with its skin peeled back, and they're quite a pretty flower. So on the slope here you can see we've got some beautiful grass trees, also known as xanthorrhoeas, with these tall flower spikes which go up to sort of 3 to 4 metres in height. And these are a pretty spectacular native plant when in flower. That flower spike, as it develops, it gets lots of little cream flowers that go the whole way up and down the flower spike, and then once the flowers are spent, the seed will develop, and then you'll get them sort of left as this black flower spike with all the seeds on them. When they're in full flower, you get lots of small little nectivorous birds which come and they like to feed on them, as well as a lot of different sorts of insects. And these plants, they can grow for sort of hundreds of years, so these might already be a couple of 100 years old. So in here you can see we've got a Banksia growing. The flowers on this one are already a bit spent, but this one here is known as Banksia aemula, and it's one of the characteristic species for Eastern Suburbs Banksia scrub. Here we've got Monotoca elliptica, or tree broom heath is the common name, and this is a pretty common species in Randwick, and this is generally about as tall as it will grow. It gets small cream flowers, and then later in summer it will develop orange edible berries, and when it gets covered in these edible orange berries, it's quite spectacular, just full of bright orange. There's not too many trees on this Western Escarpment walking track, but once you come down off the top of the escarpment down, you start to find some deeper soils on the edges, and that's where you'll tend to get a few of our gum trees growing. This one in behind me here on either side of the path is called Corymbia gummifera, or red bloodwood, and they get these little small wineglass shaped fruits, and the seeds will sort of be in them. This attractive native here is called Philotheca buxifolia, or a native waxflower. You can see it's covered in these white flowers, and it's absolutely covered in bees today. This one's in the Rutaceae family, which is the same family as citrus, so that means that it has quite an aromatic scent in the leaves, and that's because the leaves are covered in small oil glands which are full of sort of volatile oils. This one here is Banksia ericoides, or the heath-leafed Banksia. It gets generally to a couple of metres tall, and it gets these really large orange flower spikes, which birds absolutely love because they're full of nectar. And one of the great things about a lot of Banksia species is that they flower in winter when not a lot of other natives are flowering, so they're a really valuable food source for some of the native birds. So this delicate little native here is called Leucopogon ericoides, or bearded heath. And the reason it gets the name bearded heath is because it's got these really pretty but quite small white flowers, and they're covered in hairs, so when you look quite closely it almost looks like a bit of a beard. This pretty little native here is called native fuchsia or Opercularia longiflora, and it gets these long red and white tubular flowers, and that's where it gets the name longiflora, which refers to the long flowers. This is also a member of the Ericoides family, so it's another one with very short, sharp, pointed leaves that are very sort of spiky to the touch. So this one here with these funny looking seed pods on it is a type of wattle, also known as an acacia, and this one is the sweet wattle or Acacia suaveolens. This one's already gone to flower, but like all our natives, after they've gone to flower they'll start to develop their seeds. This one does so in these little pods which start out green, and as they ripen they'll turn brown, split open, and then those seeds will fall to the ground and germinate as new plants. So right now we've reached the highest point on the walk, and you can actually see way down in the distance the Illawarra escarpment, and you do get some nice views also looking down to Malabar in the south and Maroubra to the north. So sometimes one of the confusing things about our native species is they can look quite similar as you see them in flower. This one, it looks similar to some of the smaller Opercularias we've already seen, but this one's a different one altogether, and it's called Woolsia pungens. I guess something that distinguishes this from some of the other Opercularias that we've already looked at is that the flowers seem to be all terminal and cluster on the end rather than being spread along the stems. So now we're starting to come down the southern section of the walk, heading in towards Pioneers Park, down off the top of the escarpment, and once again we're starting to get slightly deeper soils which can support some of the trees. So this one in around me here is actually my personal favourite. It's the Sydney red gum, also known as Angophora costata. It gets its name, Sydney red gum, through the colours on the trunk. It's not always necessarily red, sometimes it might be more of a lighter pink or even a grey. But at times of the year, as the bark peels away and the colours are revealed, sometimes it can even have like an orangey or red colour to it. And this one, unlike the gum tree we looked at earlier, gets a small fruit, and all Angophoras have little ribs on their fruits, which are a key way to help identify them. This is a little native ground cover called Opercularia aspera, and it's something that's easily missed because it's not particularly showy. But once you're near it, especially if you just smell a leaf, you particularly know about it. For bush regenerators who work in the bush, weeding and working around these plants, they commonly refer to this one as fart bush because of the rather pungent smell that's produced by the leaves. This is another little native that's very easily missed, especially when it's not in flower, because it doesn't look too spectacular, but once it does come out in bloom, it's extremely pretty. And this one's called Micromyrtus ciliata. So this very spiky native above me is called Hakea terretifolia, or the common name is Dagger Hakea. And it gets its name because it's got extremely sharp points at the end of its leaves, and it's not very pleasant to touch as a result. Because it is so dense and spiky, it's great habitat for small native birds, and you'll often find nests in more mature specimens. It gets these woody follicles, and they actually hold the seed to this plant. So as the plant matures, these will split open, and inside there'll be a seed, 2 seeds in the seed pod. Thanks for joining us for the walk of the Western Escarpment walking track today. We're just approaching the Pioneers Park end of the walk now. It's a very accessible walk, so if you haven't checked it out already, come out, especially in spring while our natives are in flower. And if you'd like to learn more about our native plants, feel free to join us for Randwick Council's Bush Care program. There's plenty of information on the council website, so have a look over that and come down and join us anytime.